Hi there and welcome to Tech. I am sick as fuck today and decided to stay home from my day job. So as a result, I'm going to sort of fight through all the coughing and the sneezing and the dripping everywhere and make you guys a video. Today's video is going to be a new segment I'm going to call TickleTips. And TickleTips is pretty much just me putting together little tidbits of information about a given topic that I think will be useful for you in your travels buying used shit. So stay tuned. Number one tip. I want to point this motherboard out to y'all. This is an HP IPM87-MP motherboard. It's an OEM board. It would have been nice if I had gotten it in working condition, but I did not. And the reason I did not is because the user decided to plug a fan into this header. I know you can't see it on the camera very well. Maybe I'll get nice and close there. Yeah. Looks like a standard 3-pin fan header, but it's not. It's labeled hood sense. And what it is, I think, is their version of the open chassis detector. And you connect something to it, and then when you pop the fucking hood off, the alarm goes off. Bottom line is, if you plug a fan into that thing, it will fry your board. This one, in particular, caught on fire when I tried to power it up. Secondly, speaking of HP motherboards, now this HP motherboard has standard power connectors, but if you've watched the latest episode of Scrapyard Wars over on Linus Tech Tips and you have a Vessel subscription, you'll know that Luke, and spoiler alert from this point on, runs into a bit of a problem when he doesn't realize that his motherboard that he bought has non-standard power connectors. Which brings me to my second tip, which is check the fucking power connectors. Hewlett-Packard motherboards are notorious for this. They have this stupid little 6-pin thing as opposed to a regular 24-pin main power connector. And this can be bad news for anyone looking to build a budget rig out of a teardown like I frequently do. Tip number 3. I'm going to talk a little bit more about motherboard and CPU disparity. I've gone into some detail with regards to this topic in the past, but I want to reiterate that CPUs are incredibly durable and motherboards are not. A motherboard consists of like 1,000 little fucking doodads, each of which can fail, ruining the entire board for the most part. If you have a motherboard socket type that is, for one, rare to begin with and enthusiast, chances are as time goes on, your likelihood of finding a board to fit a given CPU will decrease. And the same is true for mainstream boards, it just takes a little longer. So you'll often end up with great CPUs and no motherboards to put it in. Perfect example I've mentioned in the past, i7-920s you can pick up here in Canada for like 30 bucks. On the downside, X58 motherboards, $300. So really not a viable option for people like me. Now how do you avoid this problem? You'll find that LGA 1155, 1156 boards, and even some LGA 775 boards are going to be available on Newegg's eBay account or NCIX outlet on eBay. They don't list these in their store usually. You've got to go to their eBay accounts to find them, and they're actually not much more expensive than something you might find on Kijiji or Craigslist. Usually I get like H61 boards or H67 boards for something like $30 to $50, and usually you can find a refurbished H61 motherboard on Newegg for $50 plus shipping, and I think maybe they charge tax here in Canada. Really not a bad alternative. You might spend another $15 and you come away with a factory refurbished motherboard that will probably do you just fine. And by the way, NCIX and Newegg did not sponsor this video, just to be clear. Tip number 4, Windows activation. Now, for those of you who are not aware, Windows activations are hardware bound. More specifically, they are tethered to your motherboard's hardware ID. There's a sequence of characters stored somewhere on a Microsoft server that tells Microsoft that your motherboard in particular has a legit Windows activation, which is why you can pop in a flash drive, reinstall Windows from fresh, and it will know to activate automatically. No key necessary. As such, if you buy a motherboard off some fuck, ask him what operating system he was using. Because if it's one that you can get installable media for, put it on a flash drive and install, it will activate. You just saved yourself $100 retail, or $40 if you go to Kingman. Also, by the way, on some teardowns, the Windows product keys will be right on the sides. Even if the hard drive contained in the unit doesn't have a Windows installation on it, you can often use that key to activate that version of Windows and then upgrade to Windows 10. So remember that as well. And number 5, my last tip with motherboards. So you should always check the pins on an Intel motherboard to make sure that the pins are in good order. And you should always just check for obvious signs of burns and whatever else before buying a motherboard. But one thing that people don't often check, especially with older boards that don't contain all solid caps, is some of the capacitors will be visibly swollen. Now this is a sign of the great capacitor plague of the mid 2000s or so. It only applies to older boards. It kind of wasn't an issue after about 2012, but if you go for anything older than that, check the capacitors, and if they look like a popcorn kernel about to burst, don't buy the board. It probably means that its lifespan, if it has any left at all, will be very short, and unless you're really good with soldering and replacing those things, it's going to be some wasted money, so avoid. Anyway, that's a quick little video I wanted to put together for you today while I'm sick. Later on, actually maybe right now, I'm going to start filming my next build log video, which I know I've been promising. The system is sitting right there. I have a buyer lined up for it, so I got to do it now, or else I'm not going to do it at all. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.